This is the Shanice Lewis Show, the #1 podcast for plus-size women. With your host, the queen of curvy conversation, Shanice Lewis.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Shanice Lewis. Today is a Monday, June 28th, 2021. Make sure you're following this show's social media pages on Facebook at The Shanice Lewis Show and on Instagram and Twitter at Shanice Show. And make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider and never miss a show. Today we have a very special guest. Renee Cafaro is the U.S. editor of plus-size print magazine SLiNK and designer at her new luxury brand, RCA Public Label, serving sizes 16 to 32. She has had a lengthy career in social justice and politics prior to her time in plus-size fashion, but finds both fields to be rooted in equality and advocacy. RCA Public Label is partly mission-based, not only to serve the sizes most forgotten by the industry, but to aim to revitalize the economy in New York City's garment center post-pandemic. Let's welcome Renee to the show.
Hi, thank you so much. And what an introduction. I mean, you don't even need me. Kind of covered it all.
Well, I'm so excited to talk to you. You always have something exciting going on. So for my listeners that aren't familiar with you, tell us about your life prior to fashion. Because prior to entering the fashion industry, you graduated from an Ivy League school and pursued a career in politics. So tell us about some of the highlights of your political career.
Yes, well, it's a very weird path to fashion, but, I was into fashion my whole life, but as a chubby kid in the 90s, I was sort of discouraged at a very, very young age that there's probably not a place for me, even if I went to fashion school, it's sort of not a place for fat kids. And so I kind of kept my love for fashion on the back burner. And went forth with the only other thing I was really passionate about, which was labor relations and social justice, which actually will be coming full circle with what we're going to be talking about with my brand. And I started when I was at Stanford University working on campus to help unionize some of the commercial food workers on campus and really caring about, workers' rights and equality. And so social justice issues have been a passion of mine since my teen years, and I created a whole career sort of out of it, starting in campaigns in 2004, right out of college, and in New York City, I had worked for now New York City Comptroller Scott Stringer, but I'd worked for him several times in his career, both in the city government and in campaigns, and I was one of the youngest members of David Patterson's gubernatorial administration right after he took over after Spitzer had left. So Governor Patterson's administration, I was in his senior advisors unit in a crazy time of 2008, 2009 when, the entire economy collapsed. And a plane went down the Hudson. All these fun things were going on, very busy. And, I love my life in politics, but it does wear on you. And I started my own fundraising firm and just stayed active in advocacy stuff for years, but felt after a while that I kept getting farther and farther away from the people that I wanted to serve. So in 2016, I actually was being encouraged to run for office for New York City Council in 2017. There was going to be an open seat where I am in Manhattan. And I strongly consider that. I was part of my community board for 10 years. I've had a long career and network within political action here in New York City. But I was also writing on the side. My side hustle was, I'd been writing for Yahoo and for SLiNK magazine for years. I had my blog, Foxy Roxy Fashion, since about 08 or 09 when I was in the governor's office. But it was under a pseudonym of Roxy. My real name's Renee, because I thought that, my love of fashion and talking about where do I get plus-size clothing and diet issues and some very personal issues about going through times of eating disorders and diet pill abuse. I didn't really want that life to permeate into the political life because I wasn't sure how the political field would feel about it. And as I got older, I realized that we now, and I think things, honestly, even in that short period of time, the world has changed. Women are actually able to be both fashionable and taken seriously. It's still sometimes tough, but AOC still gets crap for her red lipstick, but we're getting better. So now it's interesting. Both my lives have kind of blended, and I'm very happy that in 2016 I had that sort of crossroads moment of, do I run for office? And then that same year, no joke, I was at the Democratic Convention in Philadelphia, with the New York delegation for Hillary, and talking about my future. And I got an offer to be the U.S. editor of the magazine, because I had previously just been a writer, and we were going to be going nationwide in Barnes & Noble, and they wanted a larger presence and were going to promote me. And I'm like, can I see if Hillary wins and if that might be a whole other trajectory for my life? I'm like, give me a couple of months if you don't mind. And they did.
So
and,
if Hillary would have won, then you wouldn't have went in this direction?
I might not have. I think it might have always still stayed in a back burner. Part of my life, I've always been an advocate for plus size women, plus size people, plus size access to clothing. Like I said, I was doing that beforehand, and I was getting more and more comfortable by bringing that into my political life. So there still would have been that aspect, but it would have been a back burner, because I think there might have been opportunities for me, had she won, and the landscape would have been very different running in local office. To be honest, I just didn't want to, I didn't think there was the right, just being on that campaign, it was devastating, and to lose, and then who we ended up with, it's like, do I really want to be in the political office at this time when I could be doing something so much more uplifting? And it's funny, I actually think I've done more for women with SLiNK magazine and plus size fashion than I had with all these women rallies that I've had with having speakers at some sort of rally is great. But am I really reaching individuals? And that's why I got into politics in the first place. And like I said, the higher up the ladder you go, great for me, I guess, but it's not what I wanted to do, because you get farther away from the people you serve.
Right.
And this is a way for me to speak directly to individuals. Since I transitioned over into out of politics into fashion, been doing shows like yourselves, and then panel discussions and thought pieces, and it's great to hear directly from women who resonate with my story and want to talk about their eating disorders, overcoming body image issues. It's that to me is what's really moving. Is how can I push the needle forward to make people's lives a little bit better? And those outside of the plus size fashion world might think that fashion is a fluffy way to make someone's life better, like it doesn't matter. But for us, and as you know, being one of the pioneers of the plus size influencer world, that this isn't just fashion. It's not just trends and looking pretty. It's literally equal access to being able to express ourselves however we see fit, but to dress appropriately. I mean, I remember having a hard time buying what I was supposed to be wearing when I worked in the government, to look professional enough. The concerns of, am I going to get promoted? Because, I can't find a shirt, a button-down blouse that covers my boobs. So I'm wearing like tank tops and t-shirts, trying to make myself look professional just because of my size, to be discriminated against by my peers as not being seen as professional and being seen as overly sexy just because I have a large bust, but also that I was kind of discriminated against by brands. I couldn't find the clothes I needed. So that to me is an equality and access issue and not just a fashion issue.
So which industry do you think is harder to break into and make a name for yourself? Because politics has, two parties and different cliques, but the plus size industry does too. So which one you think is harder?
Well, I actually was saying the other day, like, people think fashion is like the biggest divas in the world, like Devil Wears Prada. I'm like, no, politics absolutely has bigger divas. So there's a much larger attitudes that you have to deal with in politics, and I think it's harder just in general because the gumption and the steel backbone you really need to have, the conviction you need to have to be able to continue to do this job, which is essentially abusive. I mean, you're talking to everybody, voters, opinion makers, the like, all the like, everybody, and you get verbally abused quite on the regular, and you have to be able to sort of take it and be professional, don't lose your cool, stay on message, keep your perspective of why you're fighting for this. When people, I've gotten spit at, I've gotten guns pulled on me.
What?
Yeah. Campaigning actually in Ohio is the worst because they're sort of all kind of gun nuts out there, and people just they don't like your party, they don't like your candidate, they don't like you just on their stoop, whatever it is. Several times. The books I could write about just even knocking doors on campaigns alone would be a volume of books of the stories you come across. So I think it's harder because it's getting easier now. There's a lot more young people that are breaking glass ceilings right now. But when I would start getting involved in the early 2000s, being like 20, it would be unfathomable to do anything other than being, a small-time campaign kid, even till you're in your 40s. And, young Democratic candidates were maybe 38, 37, years old, at the absolute youngest for the most part, except for my sister, who actually ran for office at 27, and that was like unheard of, and she got a lot of flack for that back in that day. But now it's different. So it might be a little easier now, but I think in general politics is harder because it all depends on where you are running, et cetera. And there's always people who want to put you through your paces. But an institutional knowledge is very important there. Where I think in the fashion industry, you still have the issue of clicks, institutional knowledge, needing to know, who are the big wigs you need to talk to, et cetera. And, you have your sets of mean girls, and there's lots of rules.
Right.
And like every industry, I think in every industry you're going to have clicks and you're going to have barriers. But the great thing is you have less traditional pathways. A lot of the problem with politics is very rigid in how people perceive how you move up the ladder. And, you have to put in lots and lots of time in certain ways, whereas in fashion, it could be as simple as having good enough content to go viral on TikTok, and now you have an audience. Once you have eyeballs, you have an audience, and you can strike a chord with people, you can break into your own way. And fashion's now moving away from the, Anna Wintour and the main fashion houses ruling everything. It's not just CFDA has to anoint you and Vogue needs to anoint you, and otherwise you're not in. There's lots of different pathways now into fashion, and it's really exciting. I think the plus-size world was sort of started on Blogspot and Tumblr and stuff before Instagram, but really took off once Instagram became a thing. And just to see the folks who have broken in. And that being said, though, I'm glad this is places people can get new faces, new blood can get in. That being said, I feel that in the plus-size fashion community particularly, we seem to forget about those who got us here. There's the Marie Denays and the Gwen DeVoes and the Jessica Canes and Scorch Magazine, and those things were like way, they were doing this thing way before Instagram was a thing. And and I just feel like sometimes we get caught up in who has the most followers and not look at the brands, look at the people that were doing the work when it was harder, when you were just running a website and not social media. That kind of work was much more difficult to get a following, and it's a much easier platform now. But I do think that's sort of one thing that I kind of wish plus size fashion had was I definitely do not want to call it like respect for your elders because none of you guys are old, but it's like that first generation of influencers before they were called influencers.
Right. Well, you're preaching to the choir right now. I agree. So this is a big week for you because you are counting down the days launching a new clothing line. Now, besides just putting out fashionable clothes, you actually want to help revitalize the New York City Garment Center. So prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, did you have plans to launch a clothing line, or did this vision come to you during the lockdown?
Kind of both. So I've always wanted to design. Like I said, this is something I've been sketching and designing for as long as I can remember. And I actually designed one of the dresses that, I'm pushing now and filed a patent application for, actually. This is a patent-pending dress. I'm calling it the convertible dress. It has a built-in bra support. It's particularly for women over a triple D. I'm a G cup, and I've always hated the fact that I don't have anything strappy. I don't have anything that packs flat. And I actually came up with that idea when I was working for the governor's office in 2009, and I drew it up. And it was one of those back burner kind of Shark Tank ideas, like someone should make this one day. And never thought I'd ever have the time or the ability. And I think because my mind was in that sort of political world, like I just said, we have a very rigid idea of how you would climb a ladder. So I think I limited myself, thinking, well, I didn't go to FIT when I was a kid, so now my time is gone. And now I can't ever be a fashion designer or make a brand because I didn't start from the beginning at 18 the way I did with politics. So I picked my track. And but I've always been writing, even from college. So writing was something that was a little bit easier for me to understand I can do. Now, I went to right before the pandemic in January 2020. I got the amazing opportunity of going for the first time ever to Paris Couture Week, and I went to the Schiaparelli show, which was a huge deal for me because Schiaparelli and just Elsa Schiaparelli in general has been a big influence on me since I started drawing around 10 years old. She invented the color shocking pink, and when I was about 10, I was obsessed with this movie, Funny Face, with Audrey Hepburn, and it was all about kind of an homage to her with shocking pink and all this fashion in Paris. And I had drawn this overskirt jumpsuit with a shocking pink lining. It was black and pink. I actually had it made for me to wear to that show because I was sort of an homage to her, and a full circle moment for me. So it's a little corny, but when I was there, I'm like, I really just want to do one great couture show one day for all plus size. Now, I've been covering shows for SLiNK magazine for almost a decade, and it's great that there's more diversity on these runways, but there's very rarely been, other than the 11 Honoré one-time show that they did, at New York Fashion Week, there's never been an all-plus-size couture show. And a lot of times when there are the plus-size models on runways, they get the boring clothes. They're never getting the crazy art piece that's a showstopper. They're kind of getting the plainer clothes of that collection. So I always thought I would do like a passion project of designing couture clothing because I've been making my own clothes for a while too. So I make some stuff for other people, something of that nature, a real side project. And it wasn't until quarantine happened that not only did I have the time, but I also had the resources. So when no one had any form of PPE at the beginning of lockdown in March, and a lot of my friends in the fashion industry were suddenly out of a job, I hired a bunch of people to make masks and hospital gowns that I then donated to New York City hospitals in March of last year. And a couple months later, some of those folks that work for incredible brands are still kind of furloughed and not sure where their future is. And meanwhile, SLiNK pivoted entirely. We were supposed to shoot our cover for a print issue the day that New York locked down. So everything we scrapped the whole issue, had to pivot into online stuff, and everyone's sort of up in the air. They're like, do you have any other work? And so I pulled out the drawings of this dress, and I'm like, I can't see you. Obviously, we're all in quarantine. If I mail this to you, and I sort of stitched something together, ripped up some bras and tops, and I kind of roughly stitched something together and send you this crude drawing from like 2009. Do you think you could make a pattern? And that's how it all started.
Wow.
Yeah, we were literally FedExing stuff back and forth to each other, and doing fittings on Zoom, with me just holding my tape measure in front of myself, and they're taking a screenshot of it. Doing fittings entirely remotely, entirely in quarantine was insane, to be honest. But I was, worked with incredible talents that I wouldn't have been able to find. They wouldn't have had the time for me, and I probably wouldn't have gotten them at such a good rate either, had they not, all been sort of freelancers looking for stopgap measures. And we built a small little library of patterns for staples that I personally just really wanted. And I thought, well, maybe if these are fixing my problems, I was kind of hoping it would fix other large girls' problems, because I'm a 20, I think, at this point. And, I've always been fluxing somewhere between a 16 and a 20 my whole life. But I'm on the bigger side now, so I'm on the 20, and so I'm very solidly in the average range of plus-size women, visibly plus, and I just get so frustrated that most brands, the cheap ones grade poorly, and you end up with things like wonky long sleeves that make no sense. And you're like, am I going to really spend as much money on alterations as the dress cost? Probably not, So you end up with either that problem on the cheap side, and on the expensive side, just flat out does not fit, because fit models are not built like regular. They aren't built like regular consumers. They're very tall, but also very thin-armed or flatter in the stomach. So even the plus fit models, if you fit off of a 16 that's perfectly hourglass, that's very tall, she's going to have a very thin stomach and very narrow arms, which means your jackets aren't going to fit if you buy it. And so I always find myself not being able to buy stuff, even if I buy the biggest size in a plus size luxury brand. So, or that just doesn't, something's wrong about them. So I put a lot of time into functionality. My mini skirts, I've always wanted an A-line mini skirt, something that's classy but also sexy. I'm 37, so I love to look cute but I don't want to look matronly, but I don't want to look like Fashion Nova. So where are the brands that are in the middle?
You don't want to look like Fashion Nova.
Exactly. I'm like, there's a time and a place for that. And and it's not every day, and there's a time and a place for the Lane Bryants of the world. But I felt like there wasn't really anything sort of in the middle that was sort of edgy, kind of chic, sexy, but also sort of age appropriate for those that are sort of in between. And I did a mini skirt, and it's a true mini mid-thigh in the front. And the biggest issue is that I always felt, well, everybody needs pockets. First of all, pockets. I'm like, I would love to see a skirt with pockets. So it's an A-line mini skirt that has deep enough pockets. You can put everything in there, and you can't see them. There's no bulk at all because it's an A-line skirt. So you don't see stuff bulging out of your pockets, which I love. But all of my skirts and dresses, we have a 2-inch thing that I call the ass allowance, which is the allowance you get. So when you put it on, the skirt looks level. It looks like a mini skirt on both sides, but it's actually about 2, possibly 3 inches, depending on the size, longer in the back. So then if you have a booty, it doesn't rise up where you have the situation where it's a nice short skirt, a nice short dress in the front, and it's totally obscene in the back, and you're showing your Spanx bike shorts, and it's a whole mess. You don't want any of that.
So what's the price point of your clothing line?
So I wish I can do it better. I'm doing it about as narrowly, pretty much not making profit. I'm doing it as narrowly as possible. I've already been yelled at by several people in the industry for the fact that I have like a 15% margin, and I should be having like a 70% margin. But biggest mission of this is that because I am using people locally in New York City that are great talents, it's obviously more expensive to do things in New York City, and we're using small businesses. It's really about their time and their hourly. So the bulk of the money is their hourly, and then I just chalk up a little bit more on for some of the materials. And I'm not even charging for my time at all in these prices. So we're between most everything is $200. So it's not terrible, you know. And the quality of the stuff is incredible because the folks that I have working with me have worked for Christian Siriano, they've worked for Versace, they've worked for Balmain. I mean, these people know their stuff. You know, they've been tailors for forever and sewers for some of the greatest brands. And our manufacturing, we have 2 manufacturing places in the city. Again, all 5 boroughs. You know, so one's in Queens, one's in Manhattan, and I've been very lucky, you know, finding people that are willing to work with a small brand that has small volume, and a lot of them are giving me a pretty good deal, to be honest. You know, if I were a big company, I think that making my motorcycle jacket would be upwards of $400 for a sample. You know, I walked into one place, the first place, I talked to everybody. It took me forever to figure this out, but I would talk to everybody. And I mean, I walked into one place and they're like, oh, in order to do a motorcycle jacket sample for you, that's, you know, $650. I'm like, whoa, that's like 3 times more than I want to sell it for. So I'm out of here. And, you know, so it took a little trial and error. I do really love the team. It's such an awesome little diverse team of go-getters that I just love so much. And, you know, I think we're all trying to do the same thing of they buy into the mission of doing this for plus sizes. Some of them have never worked specifically for plus only and are really excited by the challenge, and they've really stepped up. And even though I didn't go to design school, they've been, you know, I've learned a lot from them, but they've also been learning quite a bit from me, because there's been a few sometimes where I'm like, actually, this is the way we need to do this. I hand graded everything with them, so then we created our own set of grading rules just for RCA Public Label, because I understand what plus size bodies do, like logically, whereas a lot of these folks don't. And for my convertible dress that has a built-in bra, I'm like, actually, the bra needs to kind of stay smaller, even when we get. I'm like, at some point it plateaus, and they're like, I don't understand. That's not how grading works. I'm like, yeah, I know, but how bodies work. Or like, if you're a size 30, you know, you might have lipodemia. You know, we have to accommodate for a almost 70-inch hip. But that does not mean that you have an proportional 60-inch bust or even 70-inch bust. Like, that's not really going to happen. You know, you don't have, just because you go up in size doesn't mean that your cup size is now, you know, adequately going up as many inches. So trying to explain how bodies work, where we really hold our weight, fighting to make sure that we had a lot of room in the arms. I'm going to be the first I've ever seen, and if anyone could find me someone else who's done this, I'm happy to retract my statement of being the first. But I think I'm the first size chart to put bicep measurements on it. And because I'm always so upset that I can't buy anything in person. You know, as a plus size woman, it's really hard to buy stuff in person. So I can never buy jackets because 90% of them have a 14-inch arm, and I have like a 19-inch arm circumference of my bicep. And you know, when you have large biceps and you got to deal with fat arms, most jackets, they deal with what's called the arm side, which is the measurement like kind of around the sleeve, you know, where the sleeve meets the rest of the body, that seam. People do that, and then they kind of forget about the biceps. So, you know, you have that issue of like putting on a jacket you feel like should fit the rest of your body, but you can't get your arm in it, and it's like the most frustrating experience ever. But now I'm putting in bicep measurements into it's the front page of the website. First thing you'll see at the bottom is when you scroll down is a big size chart which will have the bicep on it. So that will explain and give people more confidence when they're buying jackets. You know, I fit this on a lot of people. Most amount of money I've spent has been on hours of fit models' time. I put it on all sorts of shapes and sizes. You know, tall. You know, depending on whatever fruit, shape you want to call yourself, apples, pears, the rest of them. I tried these things on as many different kinds of women, fit models, but also regular women, just random friends of mine, other influencers, so then I could be confident about getting as damn near close to a good, perfect fit for everyone, because that's what's really important to me. Is I don't want someone's experience to be different if you're the size 32 versus if you're the size 16. So we actually made for the jackets, we made an entirely different pattern for the size 26 and up, because once you started grading, even though we were kind of hand grading it, the fit looked a little different, by the time we got to 26. I'm like, no, I want to make sure the zippers are exactly the same placement and that everything is exactly the same experience, and nothing seems too boxy or too big or too long if you get to a bigger size.
This sounds super exciting. So what day is this collection dropping?
So everything's shipped out to the fulfillment center on Friday. So they got it today. We launch on Friday. So it'll be July 4th weekend. So we're going to be dropping on Friday. People can follow me at RCA Public Label on Instagram. That is where I'm going to be teasing all the things, and people can know exactly when it's going to be going down. But RCAPublicLabel.com is my online store, which I've done all by myself. So it seemingly works. I've actually checked it a few times. But I'm not a great tech person, but, I'm a very bare bones operation over here. So I'm very proud of doing my own e-commerce site. So I hopefully it won't crash or anything. But it's up now, and I've actually released so up there will be the size chart, will be some pictures, will be our story behind, what we are, what we're doing, and our mission. But also we have online gift cards. So if you have any friends or family that you think might enjoy something, you can get gift cards as of right now. They're just digital, just email you a barcode. But this weekend we're going to be launching, and I'm going to be giving out free shipping for the launch as well for the first week, which is great, to make things a little bit easier. You can also, I've integrated Shop Pay so people can pay in installments.
Nice.
Because I know times have been hard, and, I know people might be a little wary about spending money. But, after the year that everyone's had, I think it's time to treat ourselves regardless of, your quarantine weight gain. I'm so sick of people talking about how they need to lose their weight before they can go shopping again. If we didn't learn anything in the past year, we should have learned life is too short. Treat yourself, invest in yourself, invest in something that matters instead of fast fashion that hurts the planet and has, and hurts people, because your sweatshop labor, is terrible.
Right.
I can't ever do that. A lot of people have been like, you could make so much more money if you just did somewhere else. I'm like, you're missing the point. Point is, I wanted to do it here because, I believe in labor relations. And like I said, that was at my core, is making sure that people get a fair living wage. And that means that it's a more expensive product. That's what that means. But, we have a fair living wage for those that I work with. But also, it's about these small businesses. Like I personally buy, it's only $1 or so more to buy a yard, to buy fabric at a wholesaler in the garment center than it is to buy it online. So I'm like, I'd rather go and help those people pay their rent. So every single dime I can spend locally, I am spending. So then I can try to help people out of this pandemic after being closed for a year, which I've been very grateful, and I've been very happy, again, getting closer to people and getting closer to feeling like, even though it's a little, I'm just a small business as well, so I'm probably not infusing a ton of money, but I'm very happy and that I am doing what I can. And once I start turning a real profit, which hopefully will be soon, I did my first launch with the Lebanon Array, and we did sell quite a bit, so that was great. That was a one trunk show though, and so that was one pre-sale trunk show, but it went well enough that's why I wanted to do this. RCAPublicLabel.com, and my plan is this year at the end of our first quarter. Assuming that I'm not completely in debt, but by turn a profit. I want to give a percentage to organizations that help women, especially women of color in business. And so I've actually been talking to folks like 15% Pledge and a lot of like Black-owned business advocacy organizations. Sort of, I want to pick a new group sort of every quarter for the lifespan of my brand, which I hope is going to be a very long time, to do a little bit of giving back, of trying to even the playing field, especially for women and women of color, particularly because that's on the if it wasn't for Black women, we'd have no plus size clothing. We'd have like no advocacy. I mean, if it wasn't for like the Black women I worked with in politics in New York when I first got here, I would never have known about Ashley Stewart and all the other great places on 125th to find cute clothes. So they're personally part of my journey too. So I really think that it's important to pay it forward, especially to other women that are trying hard to make their small business dreams happen too. So with my success, I tried to take part of that to help other people's success, because I really have always believed, whether it was in politics or whether it is what I do now with SLiNK and what I do on panels and what I'm doing with this mission-based brand, is that, together we all rise. And so I really want to try to keep the essence of community going through everything. And so I'm really excited to launch this weekend. And I'm even more excited to start hearing from people who are buying stuff, and I'm all ears. If I miss the mark on a fit or if someone wants an outfit in a size I don't have, I'm also game for that. It goes up to 32, but I know that bodies don't end at a 32. So I've actually started grading, and I am prepared for anybody, male, female, gender fluid, doesn't matter. If you want my clothes and you're plus size and you feel underrepresented, email me, call me, contact me, DM me, whatever. I'm here for you.
Well, that is amazing. I'm so happy for you, and you definitely have my support. But before you go, I want you to quickly give us updates about SLiNK magazine before you go.
Yes. So my other hats as U.S. editor, I definitely been telling a lot of people, like, this does not mean that SLiNK is gone. We've been on a bit of hiatus because we're a print magazine. Britain is, it's where it's based. Britain's still in lockdown, basically. So they haven't quite gotten it together. So we were looking at fall for this year, but it might actually have to push to be early 2022 being the next issue back. My editor-in-chief and founder, Rivki Baum, she's also getting married. So when she listens to this, congratulations, Rivki. She's getting married soon. So, we have a lot going on the SLiNK side. So we're thinking fall would be great when things start to open up again in all the countries that SLiNK is in, because we are an import in several countries. We want to make sure people can safely get to those stores and buy them. So stay tuned. We're really excited. We're working on themes right now. We're going to be biannual, like we were right before the pandemic. So that's 2 issues a year. We're going to do them bigger and meatier issues, bigger, beefier issues, instead of doing 4 like we were before. So we'll be coming back with a bang very soon.
And are you taking submissions for SLiNK magazine if somebody wants to submit pictures or content?
Yeah, we actually had never done submissions before the pandemic, and we actually did 2 online issues completely from submissions because we couldn't do shoots really. I lied. We did 1 shoot. We did a cover shoot for our fall issue of last year, which I directed on FaceTime, which was really crazy. Comedian Dilsey Sloan was our cover girl, and she was shot in New York, and we did this whole thing, and I am very high risk, so I couldn't travel. I couldn't leave quarantine, so I was actually doing it via Zoom. But aside from that, we do start accepting submissions. I think we're going to accept less when we start doing print again. But if you go to editor@slinkmagazine.com or SLiNK Magazine on Instagram, you can DM us. We want to see people's portfolios. It needs to be obviously stuff that's not been printed somewhere else and something that you own the rights to. But really what I'd love to hear is some good stories. So if anyone's got some great articles they want to write about, something maybe coming out of the pandemic, their body image journeys, I think their next issue is going to be a little bit about coming out of our cocoon, turning over a new leaf, sort of getting re-released in this society. So it's going to be a pretty inspirational type of issue. So for any of your listeners that have a great story they'd like to share about their journey, either in plus-size fashion, body image, anything of that nature, or just anything else, and you happen to be a plus-size person doing something fabulous, that I love just interviewing people doing their thing at all sizes. So I'm all ears. Just DM us at SLiNK Magazine, and I'm happy to take it up to our editor-in-chief, who makes all the final decisions, and see if we can get people in there.
Well, awesome. You have a lot going on, but all good things, all positive. So, again, congratulations. You definitely have my support. Any way I can help, just let me know. And before you go, tell us your official website and social media pages for everything.
All right. My official website is www.rcapubliclabel.com. And on TikTok, which I just learned how to use, we are, and on Instagram, we are RCA Public Label there as well. It stands for Renee Cafaro Atelier, which is my parent group. That's going to be the main organization that if I do more couture stuff, which I'm working on too, working on some of that stuff, there'll be some, hopefully a fun virtual runway that I can maybe share with you in September. I'm going to be filming some fun stuff. So Renee Cafaro Atelier is the Couture LLC, which owns RCA Public Label. So that's how you can remember. Renee Cafaro Atelier is RCA Public Label, because I wanted to be the opposite of everybody's private labels, because I thought private labels were silly, and I want to bring my stuff to the public. I'm tired of the exclusivity. And so I thought it was just kind of funny. And so it's rcapubliclabel.com, and RCA Public Label is what we are under for all of our social media.
Well, thanks again for taking the time out to talk to me today, and I definitely look forward to everything you have coming up.
I am so excited, and, you are always out there doing so many great things, and I really appreciate, you giving me a platform to speak to all your listeners, and if you ever need to be dressed for something, you know where to go. I'll hook you up with something.
Okay, I'm going to keep your word to that.
Oh, yeah, please do. Thank you so much, Shanice.
We'll be in touch. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
And thank you to my special guest, Renee. Make sure you check out her line, RCA Public Label, and make sure you support. And I've been your host this evening, Shanice Lewis. Thank you for tuning in and supporting me. Until next time, keep thriving in your curves and be blessed.
You've been listening to The Shanice Lewis Show. For more info about the show, visit ShaniceLewisShow.com.